All right, and with us right now, we've got Rob Lederer. Rob, you are the CEO of Management Resources on the web at managementresources.biz. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Josh.
So in a nutshell, what does Management Resources do?
Management Resources helps companies solve a problem that every company has. And that is, it helps fulfill, we have a product, a management system that helps fulfill the untapped potential in the business. That untapped potential is different for every business. Every CEO and usually every senior team leader knows and feels that their business has more it can produce, more it can do, and they're not fulfilling their potential. And even high-performing CEOs and senior teams know that, and they're already doing a lot of things to fulfill their potential, and yet their potential is still unfulfilled. And our management system helps them to fulfill that untapped potential.
So unlike management consultants that come in and they'll do an analysis and then they'll kind of coach the executive team, so you take a different approach to that, is that right?
We do. So our management system provides a set of tools, insights, and practices that helps the senior team, and if they have the enterprise level management system, which engages the workforce as well, to identify where in the business what might be called the kink in the hose might be found. Every business is like a hose producing whatever it produces. And every hose gets a kink in it, and that creates upstream and downstream problems, and it also reduces flow through the hose. That's the unfulfilled potential that everyone's feeling, except if you don't know to look for a kink in the hose of how the whole system you're not necessarily going to find it. You're not going to find it by accident in most cases. So for instance, one of our clients, this is a smaller client. We normally do business with companies doing 5 to 10 million in sales up into double and triple digit millions. This company was a $3.5 million company, a professional services association. They weren't even a product business. They did 3.5 million in sales per year when they met us. And when they began integrating our management system, they had $233,000 of negative cash flow the year before they met us. That means they spent $233,000 to deliver products and services and deposit their collections, deposit what they sold. They spent $233,000 more than they brought in. Now, why is that? There are lots of reasons. Oh, should we grow sales? Should we cut costs to profitability? Should we be more efficient? And every company is figuring this out. Every leader is trying to figure this out. Every team is. But it's rather arbitrary. Where's the major bleeding? Let's fix that. What's keeping me up at night? Let me solve that. What's annoying me? Let me solve that. What can I live with? I'll live with it. I'll manage it, some of these things down to a livable level. But what that means is that the kink in the hose that's obstructing value creation and cash flow may never get found, because it's masquerading as an everyday problem. And every business's kink in the hose is different. In this company, their kink in the hose, the management system flashed an arrow. It wasn't a real arrow. It's not software. It's a methodology. It's a way of doing things. And we train our clients to do it. We provide the tools to do it with and provide support for that. So their management system flashed a metaphorical arrow saying, look in your aging receivables. That's where your kink in the hose is to be found, that's causing so many problems in your business, unfulfilled potential. And they did some digging, and they found that their salespeople were routinely submitting purchase orders to billing 2 to 3 weeks late. So by the time an invoice was issued, it was already aging.
Oh my gosh.
Now, no one needs to tell you to get your aging receivables down, and no one needed to tell these guys either. So they got them down to a livable level before they met us, yet they were still, this still was where the kink in the hose was to be found. That was a big problem. That was unique to that business, and it's unique to your business. Every business, it's unique where the kink in the hose is. The next year, they had $650,000 positive cash flow. This $3.5 million business, by finding the kink in the hose, had nearly $1 million turnaround in their cash position, from negative $233,000 spent more than they took in the year before to positive $650,000. That's cash banked. Why? They didn't grow sales. Their sales were flat. There was a $12,500 difference from year over year. They didn't cut their way to profitability. But they did end up reducing expenses because the extra cash flow, the impact of that constraint, that kink in the hose, caused so many upstream and downstream problems of inefficiencies and problems and missed handoffs throughout the company that appeared unrelated to each other. And this is true for every company with every company's kink in the hose. They appear unrelated to each other and to a common cause. But the use of that cash, 2 to 3 weeks more cash, times what does that? How many weeks is left in the year at that point? 16 weeks, 16 cycles of 2 to 3 weeks, 17. To get to use that 2 to 3 weeks of cash that many more times in the year caused so many efficiencies and cost reductions that's where the cash came from. They didn't know where to cut costs, but by becoming more efficient, by finding the kink in their hose and solving it, they ended up becoming highly efficient, and that's where the money came from.
And Rob, how did you get into this line of work? And then how did you start your practice? And so obviously you've done very well. You've been on the Inc. list yourself. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I've been on I came from a family business. I grew up in a family business, and that was a 4-time Inc. 500 winner. And we also won Inc. magazine's other Inc. 500 at the time, the Inner City 100. And going through that kind of crazy explosive growth is quite a learning experience. From that, I ended up creating a business to help other fast to explosive growth business owners manage rapid growth and change, help to run their businesses better, and to grow in their own proficiency. It was sort of a classic CEO coaching and small business consulting practice. But over the years, I found that was not scalable, as most consultants and coaches do. And I was interested in a bigger business. And I was an entrepreneur who loved helping other entrepreneurs, other business owners do what they do. But I didn't have a product or service that I particularly wanted to bring to market. Fortunately, I was introduced in 2007 to the inventor of our management system, who, while he was an inventor, was no entrepreneur. And so I was an entrepreneur and looking for a product, and he was an inventor looking for a business. And so we were a match made in heaven.
And so you had mentioned that you come from a small business background. Is that right?
That's right.
So
well, small to mid-size. I mean, I helped scale our family business, in a 5-year period, we went from 90 to 450 people, 9 million to 42 million in sales. It was a lot of growth.
When you, let's say you look at a typical small business, knowing what you know about your management philosophy, where would you say most businesses could probably stand to improve?
Well, as one of our advisors puts it, a little unkindly, but with too many grains of truth, the kink in the hose sometimes can be found between the CEO's ears. Yeah. And it's true for me as a CEO in my business, it's true for all of us to some degree. In my days coaching many different business owners, I learned that the fundamental mantra or practice one should do is to look at one's work as a two-sided coin. On the one side, the only way on one side, I am the bottleneck to my own growth. And on the other side, the only way to grow my business is to give my work away. So I'm the bottleneck to my own growth because I'm holding on to too much. But the only way to grow my business is to give my work away, especially where I think I can't do it. Because otherwise, I'm the bottleneck there. And so actually, our management system was a perfect complement to that, because it recognized that the CEO can't be the only problem solver, and sometimes the senior team can't be the only problem solver. Finding problems is actually a group effort sometimes. It's not just how smart you are, it's not just your expertise or your experience, it's not just being a good analyst. It's also about talking to the different people and getting from them where the different problems and opportunities in the business are, and having a way to do something about it. So our management system is a way to systematically elicit from the senior team and also and the enterprise level one, also from the workforce, to crowdsource, if you will, where the problems in the business are, and our methodology helps to distill that down to where the kink in the hose might be found among those. And by focusing people on finding the kink in the hose as opposed to fighting fires all the time, they're focused on the right thing, because that's responsible for so many of the fires happening in the first place, the kink in the hose. So to find that constraint in the whole system and have a way to find it systematically that engages your senior team and engages your workforce to focus everybody on the same biggest, most important, most consequential cause for inefficiencies in the business, as opposed to guessing it. I saw this as a golden opportunity to provide to other business owners. Yeah. That's why I partnered up with our inventor.
And when you when Management Resources launched, how did you get your first handful of clients, and how have you been able to scale maybe beyond other people who might be in this industry?
Sure. So, there's consultants are sometimes really loved by their clients, and a lot of times just tolerated. And too many times, consultants are kind of dismissed or not really respected for what they do. And there are a lot of good reasons for this, which I won't get into now, but it does mean that an important part of the ecosystem of supporting the success of a business or a business leader is sort of a second-class citizen. And there are business owners, entrepreneurs, and there are consultants, and they're not really seen as the same thing, even if the consultant has a business. Fortunately, I kind of sidestepped this issue with our business, because once we stopped being a consulting firm and coaching firm and became a product business with a management system, while it looks a little bit like consulting, it isn't, because it's a repeatable product with repeatable training and repeatable support that and repeatable practices. It doesn't require my expertise per se or anyone else's on my team. So the way it goes outside of consulting, the way my business goes out from outside of consulting is that there's no particular expertise required except expertise in setting up and configuring our management system in a company.
Right.
It's a facilitated process. And so we train and quality assure the performance of our facilitators. We have client relations management. It's not unlike an ERP installation, which I hesitate to mention in the same breath, because ERP installations suck and everyone knows it. And no one has their good story about ERP installations. We are not that. It's like we do the first part, interviewing the senior team and configuring our system like an ERP system would, without that awful middle part of an ERP rollout, because we're not a software system and it's not an ERP system. It's a specific management system that has specific, rather simple practices month in, month out. Lather, rinse, repeat each month, and the business will get the performance improvements that are promised by the management system. Use the management system, lather, rinse, repeat each month, and breakthrough performance happens. And I gave you a really good example with that company I spoke about a little while ago, of a company that did lather, rinse, repeat each month, found their first major constraint in the business, because there'll always be another after it's solved. And after a while, another kink occurs in the hose. But they found their kink in the hose. That was what the management system was designed for. That's a repeatable process. It's not a consulting solution. And they got $1 million turnaround in a $3.5 million revenue business.
One thing that you have pursued is a certified B Corporation. Why did you do that? And is that good for business?
Yeah, so thanks for asking, because I care very much about being a B Corporation. We're actually a founding B Corporation. We're the 60th B Corporation. They're now, how many worldwide? 3,000 or maybe more, I lose track. 2007, when I was introduced to the inventor of our management system, was a consequential year and a consequential conference for me, because that's where I was introduced to the inventor, but also that's where that same conference was where B Corporations were introduced to the world. The first 10 B Corporations were on stage as a dog and pony show to attract the rest of us. So I saw 5 business owners who were friends of mine, 5 with businesses I'd heard of and respected that are social and environmental, have social and environmental missions in addition to their financial mission, which my business has been committed to from day one. And because my values were so consonant with B Corporation values, and I saw people who were up on stage saying, we're leading the way, and I didn't know exactly what they were leading the way for, but I said, I'm right behind you. And so, we've been recertified as a B Corporation every time since 2007, our first certification. Has it been good for business? We're a B2B business. I think B Corporations are, from a reputational perspective, the B seal, the circle B bug is better for consumer products. So I think that's more of a B2C benefit. So I wouldn't say it's been good for business, but it does open the door to conversations that I wouldn't necessarily get. It does get the listening of other CEOs and senior team members in a different way who have the same values, who share the values that we have as a company to actively make the world a better place through business. And so it's I can't quantify it, but it's been a good social lubricant in the B2B world. It's just not got the same attractive qualities on a retail basis that for a B2C company it would have.
So Rob, what is the best way for people to kind of begin their engagement with the work that you're doing?
Sure. So, one of the things that a company can do to get what we're talking about, if you really wanted to know what I'm talking about the kink in the hose, if that sounds kind of plausible or really right on, but you don't know what to do about it or how to find it or how to think about it or how to talk about it, there's a wonderful book that's written like a mystery novel. It's kind of a thriller called The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt, Goldrattt. And it's published about 1980, and it's one of the best-selling business books ever.
Wow.
It's been translated into many languages. Tens of millions of copies have been sold. This is still a bestseller. And The Goal introduces something called the theory of constraints. And many people in business schools have read this. Many people outside of business schools have read this. But they don't have a way to operationalize how to address the constraints to be found in the business. The constraint is what I call the kink in the hose. It's the problem that's constraining value creation, throughput, and cash flow in a business. It's the thing that's constraining peak performance. So instead of trying to improve what you do, it says, let's go find what is inhibiting our peak performance and go rid ourselves of that. Let us solve what is inhibiting us from peak performance so that we can naturally flow better, faster, and more, and make more money.
Yeah.
That's the kink in the hose, is the constraint. And that book introduced the theory of constraints, and you could read it like it's a fun mystery novel, yet it's about business.
Yeah. I think anyone, if you do a quick search on Amazon, you'll see the cover and you're like, oh, yep, I've seen this book before.
Yeah.
So.
And people see this book, but rarely does anyone, when I say, oh, The Goal, oh yeah, I think I've read that. I think I've heard of that. Oh, the theory of constraints. Oh, that's right. What are you doing can you tell me about the theory of constraints? Most people still can't tell you about it. And when they can tell you about it, I pursue this. It's like peeling back the onion. When they can tell me about it, I say, since you love it, because they do, when they can tell you about it, they love it. What are you doing about it? Do you have a systematic way to find the constraint in your business? And the answer always is no. And that's what our management system does, is it provides a systematic way to always find the constraint and do something about it, to remove what's inhibiting peak performance in your business.
Excellent. Well, Rob Lederer, you are the founder and CEO of Management Resources on the web at managementresources.biz. I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Josh, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.